It was a small village, nestled between rolling hills and wide fields that seemed to stretch forever. Life there was simple, slow, and sometimes harsh. People knew each other by name, and everyone had their own stories, whispered behind closed doors or shared over the evening fires. Among all the villagers, one woman stood out not because of her beauty or wealth, but because of her size. She was unusually tall, with long arms and broad shoulders, and wherever she went, people couldn't help but notice her. Children stared openly, sometimes in awe, sometimes in fear, and even grown-ups couldn't ignore her presence. But she never let the attention bother her. She moved with calm dignity, carrying herself as if the world was just another part of her daily life. Her name was Amina. She had grown up in this village, raised by parents who taught her the importance of strength and kindness. Her father was a farmer, and her mother tended to the house and garden with gentle care. From a young age, Amina learned the value of hard work. She could lift heavy sacks of grain, walk long distances, and help her mother with the endless chores without complaint. But beyond her strength, what made her remarkable was her heart. She was generous, always ready to help anyone in need, even if it meant putting her own needs aside. Amina's life seemed ordinary until the day she met her husband, Samir. He was a kind man, with a soft smile and eyes that could calm anyone's worries. Unlike most men in the village, Samir didn't mind her size. He admired her strength and courage. They fell in love quietly, without fuss, and soon, everyone in the village knew of their bond. They married in a small ceremony, surrounded by family, friends, and neighbors. Life seemed perfect, but happiness, as it often does, didn't last long. Samir was ambitious, eager to provide a better life for himself and Amina. He decided to leave the village to work in a distant city. At first, it was supposed to be temporary, a few months, maybe a year. He promised Amina he would return as soon as he could. She waited patiently, trusting him completely, believing in the life they would build together. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. Letters came sometimes, then less often, and eventually stopped altogether. Amina wrote letters faithfully, pouring her heart onto the paper, telling him about the village, her work, and her longing to see him again. But no replies came. The silence grew heavier with each passing day. People in the village began to whisper. "Perhaps he will never return," they said. Some were kind, offering comfort. Others were cruel, questioning why a man would abandon such a strong and loyal woman. Amina refused to give in to despair at first. She believed in Samir's love, in the promises they had made to each other. She kept busy, tending to the small garden behind her house, helping neighbors with their chores, and sometimes traveling to the nearby town to sell fruits and vegetables. Every night, she would sit by the window, staring at the distant road, hoping to see his figure walking toward her. But as years went by, the hope began to fade. Eventually, the truth became unavoidable. Officially, Samir was declared dead. Amina received the papers one quiet morning. Her hands trembled as she read them, her heart feeling as though it had been hollowed out. The man she had loved with all her soul was gone, or so she was told. A mixture of grief, shock, and disbelief overwhelmed her. The world seemed to lose its color. The sky looked dimmer, the wind harsher, and even the fields, which once seemed full of life, felt empty. In the months that followed, Amina faced a loneliness that was deeper than anything she had ever known. The villagers tried to comfort her, but no words could fill the void left by Samir's absence. Some of them expected her to remarry quickly, to move on as if life were something simple to restart. But Amina knew her heart could not forget. She would never forget. Instead, she focused on survival, learning to live with the pain rather than pretending it didn't exist. She took over the small plot of land left by her parents, growing vegetables and raising a few chickens. She sold what she could at the market, always greeting everyone with a soft smile, even when her heart ached. People admired her resilience, though they did not know the depth of her sorrow. At night, she would often sit by the fireplace, gazing into the flames, remembering moments with Samir, his laughter, the way he held her hand, and the dreams they had shared. Sometimes tears would fall silently, soaking her pillow, but she never allowed herself to be overwhelmed. She knew she had to survive, not just for herself, but to honor the life she had shared with him. Over the years, Amina became a symbol of quiet strength in the village. Children loved her stories, women sought her advice, and even men respected her for her courage. She taught them that life could be hard, but it was not cruel if one faced it with dignity. She helped a widow with her children, guided a young man in planting his first crop, and comforted anyone who had lost someone they loved. In a way, she found purpose in the pain, transforming her grief into something meaningful for others. Yet, despite her strength, there were moments when the loneliness returned with a heavy weight. On stormy nights, when the wind howled and the rain pounded against her windows, she felt the absence of Samir more than ever. She imagined him walking back into her life, tired but smiling, apologizing for all the years lost. She would sit silently, imagining conversations that could never happen, hugs that would never be shared. Sometimes, she wondered if she had wasted her youth waiting for a man who would never return. But then she reminded herself of the love they had shared, the lessons she had learned, and the courage she had discovered within herself. That love, though lost, had shaped her into the woman she had become. A woman who could stand alone and still hold the world in her hands. Amina's life continued in this quiet rhythm. Days were long, filled with work and small joys. A child's laughter in the street, the first bloom of flowers in her garden, a neighbor bringing fresh bread. She learned to find happiness in these moments, even if her heart carried a hidden ache. And though she sometimes doubted the future, she never gave up hope completely. Deep inside, a small spark remained, a spark that life, in its mysterious way, might still bring unexpected surprises. Even without Samir, Amina's story was far from over. She had survived loss, loneliness, and the judgment of others. She had built a life with her own hands, proving that strength was not just physical, but emotional and spiritual. And little did she know that the quiet, ordinary days she had learned to live would soon be interrupted by a moment so extraordinary that it would change everything she had come to believe about love, family, and fate. Amina's days had settled into a quiet routine, one that had become almost predictable over the years. She rose early each morning, tended to her small garden, fed the chickens, and then walked to the market to sell vegetables. The villagers had grown used to her presence, the tall, strong widow who carried herself with dignity and never complained. Yet, despite the life she had built for herself, a part of her remained fragile, still carrying the memory of the man she loved and lost. One ordinary afternoon, as Amina returned from the market with her basket nearly empty, she noticed something unusual near the edge of the village. Two small figures were standing under a tree, their eyes fixed on her as she approached. At first, she thought they were ordinary children playing in the village, as many did, but as she drew closer, she noticed their faces round, pale, and dirty from travel, with wide, uncertain eyes. They looked tired, frightened, yet somehow determined. Before she could speak, one of the children, a little girl with tangled hair, ran forward and shouted, "Mummy!" Her voice was clear, strong, and full of hope. The word struck Amina like a sudden thunderclap. She froze, unsure whether she had heard correctly. She looked at the two girls, their small hands reaching out to her, their faces filled with expectation. "Mummy," they repeated, their voices trembling, as if they had waited for years to say it. Amina's heart pounded. She had never had children. She had never imagined a life in which she would be called Mummy again. Confusion, disbelief, and shock surged through her all at once. Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Shaking as she reached out cautiously, the girls clung to her, as if her touch confirmed their own reality. Their eyes mirrored trust and fear in equal measure. "They told us to find you," the younger one said, her small hands holding tightly to her sister's arm. "We were told you are our mummy. We've been looking for you for a long time." Amina's mind raced. She knew nothing of these children. She had never given birth. She had never left her home for more than a few days. How could they call her their mother? She took a step back, overwhelmed by emotions she could not name. The villagers had begun to gather, curious at the commotion. Whispers spread through the crowd. Who are these children? Where did they come from? Are they lost? But Amina barely heard them. Her mind was focused entirely on the two girls, on their faces, their voices, and the way they clung to each other. Something deep inside her stirred. A strange connection she could not explain. It was as if she recognized a part of herself in their eyes, a spark of familiarity that frightened and amazed her at the same time. She led the girls to her home, walking slowly to give herself time to think. They held her hands tightly, never letting go, as though their lives depended on her presence. Once inside, she offered them water and bread, though her hands shook as she did so. They ate quietly, their eyes constantly on her face, waiting for a sign, a word, or an acknowledgement that she was truly theirs. Amina sat across from them, trying to make sense of what was happening. She thought about Samir, the man she had loved and lost, the one declared dead so many years ago. Could it be possible that these children were connected to him? Her heart ached with both hope and fear. Hope that perhaps there was some miracle, some explanation for this impossible situation. Fear that the truth, if revealed, might shatter the fragile life she had built for herself. The girls began to speak slowly, telling her fragments of their story. They had lived far away in a town she had never visited. They had been cared for by a kind woman who had told them to find their mother when they were old enough to travel. They described their father, a man they remembered only in small details, a kind face, a gentle voice, and a smile that had stayed with them, even in the darkest moments. As they spoke, Amina felt a strange mixture of sadness and wonder. Could it really be that Samir had another life? One she knew nothing about? She felt a pang of jealousy, anger, and grief, all rolled into one. But beneath it was an undeniable tenderness toward the two girls. They were innocent, helpless, and seeking the love and security only a mother could provide. Despite the shock, she found herself wanting to protect them, to embrace them as her own, even if it meant accepting a reality she could hardly believe. The villagers watched in awe as Amina interacted with the children. Some whispered among themselves, astonished by the sudden turn of events. "Is it true?" they asked one another. Could this really be happening? But Amina didn't answer them. She was lost in the world of these two small girls, trying to understand their story, their journey, and the truth of what they claimed. Over the next few days, Amina learned more about the girls. They had traveled for weeks, often walking long distances with little food or rest. They had faced challenges and fears most adults would struggle to endure. Yet, they never wavered in their search for her. Their determination amazed Amina. She began to see that their connection to her was not just a coincidence. It was something deeper, something she could not yet fully comprehend. Slowly, she began to open her heart to them. She told them about her life, about the years she had spent waiting and hoping, about the pain of losing their father. The girls listened quietly, absorbing every word with wide eyes and thoughtful expressions. They seemed to understand her grief in a way that no one else could. In their presence, she felt a strange sense of completeness, as if a missing piece of her life had suddenly returned. The bond between Amina and the girls grew stronger with each passing day. She taught them how to tend the garden, how to cook simple meals, and how to care for the chickens. In return, they brought laughter, energy, and warmth into her home. The once quiet and lonely house now echoed with their voices, their questions, and their endless curiosity. Amina found herself smiling more often, feeling emotions she had thought were buried forever. Yet, even as she embraced the children, questions remained. Who exactly were they? How could they be her children if she had never given birth? What had happened to Samir, and why had she never known about this other life? Amina struggled with the uncertainty. Torn between disbelief and the undeniable reality of the girls standing before her. Each day brought new challenges as she tried to piece together a story that seemed almost impossible. One evening, as the sun set over the hills, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Amina sat with the girls on the porch. They leaned against her, tired from a day of playing and learning. Yet their small hands never left hers. For a long time, none of them spoke. The silence was comforting, a shared understanding that words were not always necessary. In that quiet moment, Amina realized that life had a way of surprising even the strongest hearts. Just when she had resigned herself to a lonely existence, the universe had brought her something unimaginable. She looked at their faces, framed by the soft glow of the evening sun, and felt a surge of love she had never anticipated. These children, who had appeared out of nowhere, had already changed her life. They had awakened something inside her, a sense of purpose, connection, and belonging that she had thought was lost forever. Amina knew that the road ahead would be difficult, filled with questions, challenges, and revelations. But for the first time in many years, she felt hope, not a fragile hope, but a quiet, enduring certainty that life had more in store for her than she had ever imagined. As night fell and the village quieted, Amina tucked the girls into bed, their small bodies curled up safely under her care. She sat by the window afterward, looking at the stars that sparkled above, thinking of Samir, thinking of the future, and thinking of the extraordinary turn her life had taken. She knew that the days ahead would be filled with discovery, truth, and perhaps more heartbreak. But she also knew that she was ready to face whatever came next, because for the first time in a long while, she was not alone. She had two small souls depending on her, trusting her, and loving her unconditionally, even before she fully understood the meaning of it all. Amina drifted into sleep that night with a sense of wonder and cautious excitement. She had lived years of sorrow, of waiting, and of quiet endurance. And now, life had handed her a gift so profound that it felt almost unreal. The journey ahead would test her in ways she had never imagined. But she was prepared. Because love, she realized, has a way of finding its way back, even when the heart has forgotten how to hope. And in the morning, she would wake to the laughter and voices of the two little girls who had called her Mummy, marking the beginning of a new chapter she could never have dreamed of. The days following the arrival of the twin girls were a whirlwind of emotions for Amina. She had started to accept the children into her daily life, learning their habits, their favorite foods, and the small quirks that made each of them unique. Yet, in the quiet moments, questions continued to swirl in her mind. Who were these children truly? How could they call her Mummy if she had never given birth? And most importantly, what had happened to Samir, the man she had loved and lost so many years ago? The twins, sensing her hesitation, were both curious and patient. They often asked her questions about their father, about the village, and about the life she had lived while they were growing up elsewhere. They shared small stories of their own childhood playing in fields, learning to read, and listening to tales of a mother they had never met. Each story tugged at Amina's heart, weaving a delicate connection between them. She found herself listening more than speaking, letting their words fill the spaces in her heart that had felt empty for so long. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the fields, Amina decided it was time to uncover the truth. She had reached out to a few villagers who had connections in nearby towns, people who might know more about Samir's fate. She learned that many years ago, after leaving the village, Samir had been involved in a severe accident. The injuries had caused memory loss, leaving him unaware of the life he had left behind. For years, he had lived elsewhere, trying to piece together fragments of his identity. During this time, he had unknowingly begun another life, one that included the birth of the twin girls. The revelation hit Amina like a wave. Her heart ached with a mix of relief, sorrow, and anger. Relief, because the man she loved had survived. Sorrow, because she had missed years of his presence and the children's early lives. And anger, because she had been left to face grief and loneliness without knowing the full truth. But beneath it all was an undeniable curiosity and hope that she could now reconnect with the life that had been lost to her. Over the next few days, Amina and the girls began to gather pieces of the story. They discovered letters, photographs, and old documents that traced Samir's journey over the years. Each piece revealed a life lived under circumstances he could not control, a life filled with struggles, resilience, and eventually, fatherhood. The girls recognized him in the photographs, their small hands trembling as they pointed to the familiar face. Amina studied the images, feeling an emotional storm inside her. She saw the man she had loved, the man who had created these two remarkable children, and the man who had unknowingly shaped lives in ways she could never have imagined. The villagers, too, began to understand the complexity of the situation. Conversations buzzed in small groups about the incredible twist of fate. Many expressed admiration for Amina's strength and compassion. They watched as she balanced her emotions, offering comfort to the twins while processing the truth about their father. Some wondered how they would all move forward, how the family could reconnect, and how the community could support them through such a delicate time. Amina, however, focused only on the children and the life she was beginning to rebuild with them. In the quiet moments, the girls would sit with Amina, asking about their father, and sharing their own hopes and fears. "Will we ever see him?" one of them asked softly, her eyes wide with longing. Amina held them close, trying to convey reassurance, even though the answer was uncertain. She explained gently that sometimes life is complicated, and that people we love may be far away for reasons beyond our understanding. Yet, she promised them that she would always be there, providing love, care, and guidance, no matter what the future held. As the truth unfolded, Amina's bond with the twins deepened. She realized that love could grow in many ways, not only through blood but through care, patience, and shared experiences. She taught them about the village, about kindness, and about resilience, sharing the lessons she had learned over years of hardship. In return, they brought joy, laughter, and energy into her home, filling spaces that had once felt empty. Their presence reminded her that family was not only about the past but also about the connections and love built in the present. One day, Amina received news that would bring the family closer to closure. A man who had known Samir well came to the village to share details about his life. He explained how Samir had survived the accident, lost his memory, and unknowingly become a father. He described the small town where Samir had lived, the challenges he had faced, and the people who had helped him along the way. Listening to the account, Amina felt tears stream down her face. The story confirmed everything the girls had said, painting a fuller picture of the life that had unfolded while she had been waiting. Despite the pain of lost years, Amina found herself feeling compassion rather than anger. She understood that Samir had not abandoned her intentionally, and that life had a way of testing people in unimaginable ways. The twins, too, seemed to sense this. They often spoke of their father with admiration and curiosity, expressing a desire to understand him rather than blame him. Their innocence and willingness to forgive inspired Amina to embrace the future with an open heart, ready to rebuild a family that had been scattered by circumstances beyond anyone's control. The journey to piece together their past continued. Amina helped the girls write letters, gather memories, and connect with people who had known Samir. Each step brought new revelations, small details about their father, stories of his kindness, and hints of his longing to reconnect with them. The process was emotional, filled with laughter, tears, and quiet reflection. Amina often marveled at the resilience of the children, who had traveled far and faced uncertainty with courage beyond their years. She realized that love and determination could overcome even the most challenging obstacles, weaving connections across time and distance. Through these discoveries, Amina began to see her own life in a new light. She understood that the years of waiting, of loneliness, and of quiet endurance had prepared her for this moment. Her strength was not only physical but emotional, allowing her to embrace the unexpected and provide a safe, loving environment for the twins. She recognized that while the past could not be changed, the future was still hers to shape a future filled with hope, family, and the possibility of reconnection. As weeks passed, the household settled into a new rhythm. The girls helped with chores, played in the garden, and learned from Amina's wisdom. She, in turn, listened to their stories, encouraged their dreams, and shared her experiences. Each day strengthened their bond, building trust and love that would last a lifetime. Amina felt a sense of purpose she had never known before, a sense that her life, though marked by loss, was now full of meaning and connection. The villagers watched with admiration as the family grew closer. They offered support, shared advice, and provided assistance whenever needed. Conversations in the marketplace and on the streets shifted from curiosity to respect, acknowledging the remarkable journey Amina and the twins had undertaken together. Her resilience, patience, and unconditional love became an example for others, showing that even in the face of unimaginable challenges, hope and compassion could prevail. One evening, as Amina sat with the twins under the open sky, she reflected on the journey they had shared. From the shock of their arrival to the gradual uncovering of the truth about Samir, every moment had been a lesson in patience, forgiveness, and love. She realized that family was not defined solely by circumstance or history, but by the bonds created through care, trust, and shared experiences. The twins, sensing her thoughts, held her hands and smiled, their eyes filled with trust and admiration. In that quiet moment, Amina felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Though the story of Samir's survival and the twins' early life was far from complete, Amina embraced the truth she now knew. She understood that life's twists and turns were unpredictable, sometimes cruel, sometimes miraculous. Yet, through it all, she had discovered the strength within herself to face the unknown, to care for the children, and to find joy in a future that had once seemed impossible. The path ahead would still hold challenges, but she was ready to meet them, confident that love and resilience would guide them through. And so, the household moved forward, united by bonds of trust, love, and shared discovery. The twins called her Mummy without hesitation, their voices filled with certainty and affection. Amina responded with warmth, patience, and unwavering devotion. Together, they navigated the complexities of the past while building a life full of laughter, learning, and hope. The truth about Samir, though bittersweet, had brought them together, reminding Amina that even in the darkest moments, life could surprise and heal in ways she had never imagined. Life for Amina and the twin girls had begun to settle into a new rhythm, yet every day brought its own lessons, challenges, and moments of joy. The house that had once been quiet and still was now alive with laughter, chatter, and energy. The girls' voices echoed through the rooms, their small feet running across the wooden floors, their curiosity transforming even the simplest corners of the home into places of wonder. For Amina, it was a miracle. After so many years of silence and solitude, her life had finally become vibrant again, filled with love, warmth, and purpose. Each morning, Amina would rise early to tend to the garden, a task she had carried out alone for many years. Now, the twins helped her with the chores, learning the names of the plants, how to water them gently, and how to care for the soil. They laughed together when one of them accidentally knocked over a watering can or when the chickens ran across their path. These small, everyday moments were the beginnings of memories that would last a lifetime, moments that transformed Amina's home into a true sanctuary for the girls and for herself. Amina also began to teach them skills she had learned over the years. She showed them how to cook simple meals, how to sew, and how to mend broken things around the house. More importantly, she taught them about life, about kindness, patience, and resilience. She spoke to them of the importance of standing strong even in difficult times, of helping others when they could, and of cherishing family in all its forms. The girls listened intently, absorbing her words with wide, trusting eyes. Every lesson, every shared story, strengthened the bond between them, and Amina felt a profound sense of fulfillment that she had never known before. Evenings were the most special time for Amina and the twins. After the day's work was done, they would sit together under the stars. Amina told them stories about the village, about her childhood, and about the lessons she had learned through years of hardship. The girls shared their own stories as well, recounting the adventures and small victories of their early years. Sometimes, they would talk about their father, wondering what he was doing, what he looked like, and whether he was thinking of them. Amina answered gently, explaining that life sometimes took people far apart. But love could never truly be lost. The girls' curiosity often led them to ask questions about Samir, their father. They wanted to understand him, to know why he had been absent, and to learn about the man whose memory lingered in photographs and stories. Amina answered with care, explaining the accident that had caused his memory loss and how life had kept them apart for so many years. She spoke of the pain she had felt, the years she had spent waiting, and the hope that had never completely faded. The girls listened silently, sometimes hugging her tightly, absorbing both the sorrow and the love she had carried in her heart. As the bond between Amina and the twins strengthened, the village began to notice the remarkable transformation. People who had once whispered about the tall widow now spoke of her with admiration. They saw her patience, her devotion, and the way she nurtured the children with love and care. The twins, too, were growing comfortable in the village, learning to navigate the streets, the fields, and the community. They made friends, played games, and began to feel a sense of belonging that had been missing from their lives. Together, the small family created a space of warmth and acceptance that extended beyond the walls of their home. There were challenges along the way. Sometimes the twins would ask difficult questions, or small misunderstandings would lead to tears and frustration. But Amina approached each challenge with patience, guiding them with gentle words and understanding. She learned to balance discipline with affection, structure with freedom, and tradition with the new experiences the girls brought into her life. Slowly, she realized that being a mother was not just about raising children, it was about growing together, learning from one another, and building a family that could weather any storm. One of the most emotional moments came when the girls expressed a desire to know more about their father's life. They wanted to understand him as a person, to feel connected to the man who had unknowingly shaped their lives. Amina encouraged them to ask questions, and together they read old letters, looked at photographs, and listened to stories from villagers who had known him. Each revelation brought a mix of emotions: joy at discovering his kindness, sadness at the years lost, and hope that one day they might feel a connection to him despite his absence. Amina guided them gently through this process, ensuring that they understood both the reality of the past and the possibilities of the future. As months passed, the small household grew stronger. The girls became more confident, learning skills and lessons that would carry them into the future. They laughed more freely, slept more peacefully, and showed signs of happiness that Amina had longed to see. In turn, Amina found herself more patient, more joyful, and more alive than she had been in years. Her life, once defined by solitude and loss, had been transformed by the presence of these two small souls who had called her Mummy without hesitation. Community life also began to shift around them. Neighbors offered help, advice, and support, understanding the unusual circumstances that had brought the family together. Children played with the twins, adults assisted with chores and guidance, and the village slowly embraced the new family as part of its fabric. Amina no longer felt isolated. She had a support system, friends, and a community that admired her resilience. The presence of the twins not only enriched her life but also reminded everyone that love and family could be rebuilt, even after years of separation and loss. Over time, Amina allowed herself to reflect on the journey that had led to this moment. She thought about the years of waiting, the loneliness, and the pain she had endured. She considered the hardships of raising herself, managing her home, and facing a world that often judged her. And yet, she realized that every struggle had prepared her for this new chapter. The experiences of the past had given her strength, patience, and wisdom, the tools she needed to guide the twins and create a home filled with love. The girls, sensing Amina's inner thoughts, often asked about her feelings, her dreams, and her hopes. She shared her emotions openly, teaching them that vulnerability was not weakness but a sign of strength. She explained that life could be unpredictable, full of challenges and surprises, and that love often appeared in unexpected ways. The twins listened attentively, learning lessons that went far beyond simple instructions or stories. They were learning about resilience, compassion, and the power of family, the kind of lessons that would shape their lives forever. Amina also began to notice subtle changes in herself. She laughed more freely, slept more peacefully, and felt a sense of belonging that had eluded her for years. The girl's presence reminded her that happiness could be found in small moments, the warmth of a hug, the sound of laughter, or the quiet peace of an evening spent together. She cherished each day, no longer taking life for granted, and understood that the love she had lost had returned in a new form, through the bond she now shared with the twins. As the family continued to grow together, Amina also began to think about the future. She considered how she could support the girls as they grew older, how she could nurture their dreams, and how she could help them feel connected to the father they had never truly known. Though she could not change the past, she realized that she had the power to shape a future filled with love, security, and happiness. Every decision, every action, was guided by the desire to create a life that the girls would remember fondly, a life that would honor the love she had once shared with Samir. The bond between Amina and the girls deepened with each passing day. They shared meals, chores, stories, and laughter, creating memories that would last a lifetime. They comforted one another during difficult moments, celebrated successes together, and learned the value of trust, patience, and unconditional love. Amina found that her heart, once heavy with sorrow, had grown larger, capable of embracing not only the girls but also the joy and possibilities that life now offered. And so, life moved forward. The household, once quiet and solitary, was now filled with energy, laughter, and love. Amina had transformed from a lonely widow into a mother, a guide, and a protector. The twins had found a home, a place of safety, learning, and warmth. Together, they created a family that was not defined by the past, but by the love and care they shared in the present. The journey had been long, filled with challenges and revelations, but it had led to a future brighter than Amina had ever imagined. In the evenings, as they sat together under the stars, Amina would sometimes reflect on the extraordinary journey that had brought them here. From the heartbreak of losing Samir to the sudden appearance of the twins, from the discovery of the truth to the building of a new life, every moment had shaped them, taught them, and connected them. And in the quiet of those nights, with the girls nestled close to her, Amina understood a profound truth. Family is not only born of blood, but of love, care, and shared experiences. It is created, nurtured, and cherished. And it can appear when least expected, transforming life in ways we could never imagine. Amina's life had changed forever. She had embraced the unexpected, faced the unknown with courage, and opened her heart to love in its purest form. The twins, who had once arrived as strangers calling her Mummy, had become the center of her world. Together, they faced the future, their hearts intertwined, their home filled with laughter, learning, and the deep, enduring bonds of family. And though the past had been painful and full of uncertainty, the present was now a place of hope, love, and endless possibility. A new chapter in the life of a woman who had waited so long for happiness and had finally found it in the most extraordinary way.